they had this amazing experience in their first ever attempt. Wow, that was incredible. I felt all these things in my body. I saw all these things. I had this epiphany. I feel calm and centered. The pain in my back is gone. That was incredible. And that's available for everybody. I've been teaching this for 14 years, and I've never met a single person that can't do this. I've never met a single person who isn't gifted.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Dating Without Nipples podcast, where we are taking the top off of insecurity and shame to show up for your most inspired and courageous life. I am so excited, sweet souls, to introduce you today to Cara Viana. Cara is a master teacher, healer, intuitive channel, and transformational coach. She helps bring people back to their connection with their broader essence of who they are, deepen their spiritual connection, and harness their intuitive gifts. Her work includes transformational courses, retreats, programs, and private healing and coaching. Each one curated to free you of blocks, diminish your hurdles, and empower you to navigate daily life like a ninja of joy. I love that. Cara, thank you so much for being with us today.
So excited to join you. Thanks.
Awesome. So I would love to start with transformational coach, intuitive channel, all of that for anybody watching that might be thinking, uh-oh, here we go, woo-woo. Can you play with me a little bit today to do maybe a little bit of myth busting around meditation, what it means to be intuitive, your higher self, and even psychic abilities? Can you tell us a little bit about your own personal story and then how those things have shown up, how you've been able to impart your wisdom to others?
Yeah, I love that myth busting because it definitely does. Many people meet with like the glassy eyed look when they hear that, like, oh, it's about to get weird. And it is, sure. you could say that. I'm definitely very woo. But I like to think that I bridge the gap between the super spiritual that's hard to relate to and like actually being a human and living everyday life. And those two things really don't need to be separate the way that they have been. So I like to kind of mesh them all together. So do you want me to start with kind of my story and then we can talk about the myth busting, or which direction do you want to go with it?
I think it would be really helpful to start with a little bit of your personal journey, because I know that you cultivated these gifts and ultimately healed yourself, right? It started with your own personal journey. I would love if you'd share a little bit about that.
Perfect. Okay. So I got into this work when I was 18. I had spent my entire life without realizing it being a highly sensitive little being, and growing up that way, life was challenging. I didn't recognize any of this. I didn't know. My mom was pretty aware. Like, she definitely knew something was up and had started kind of researching and looking into what's going on with this kid, and had talked to some people who had said, yeah, your kid's pretty intuitive and gifted, and that's what's causing the headaches and the stomach aches and the can't be around certain people and calling crying every day from school. And there was a short period of time in, I think, first grade where my mom had to physically drag me screaming into school every day. And I'm a pretty outgoing person, so it wasn't really that I was afraid of people. It was, there was a teacher at the school with a really negative energy, and I couldn't hack it. Eventually, she couldn't handle that anymore, and being the awesome mom she is, she yanked me out of that school and drove me to the next town over, where she could find like a little small school that was willing to cater to a little bit more of what I needed. So being that kind of kid growing up, what I was doing is just being this like wide open little energy being, and I was feeling everything that everybody's feeling all the time. And there's way more people doing this than anybody realizes. It comes out in weird ways, like they might just be really cranky or pissed off or cry all the time, or can't seem to have a conversation about certain things because they get really overly upset. So it's really fairly common. I was just a really extreme case of it. by the time I got to about 18, I had taken on so much from the world around me, trying to like process everybody else's pain so that they would feel better so that I could breathe. It crumbled. It was like the straw that finally broke the camel's back. And I fell into this really dark clinical depression. And I didn't have an obvious reason for it. I didn't know at the time that that's what was causing it. I didn't know any of that was happening. I couldn't figure out a reason for why I was racking in sobs for hours and hours every day and just wanting to die. So I went to, I began down a whole journey. I started studying meditation and energy work and learning about intuitive gifts at the same time that I was doing therapy and doctors and medication. I came at it from every angle that I could. And thank goodness, because I'm still here today. I was fighting for my life, quite literally, and it worked. The medication held me up long enough for the meditation to do its thing. And it took about 6 years for me to go through that entire process of healing myself. Right at the beginning, when I started taking all these classes and studying, I started to recognize and see, my teacher started to show me really, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. When I look energetically at my system, there's an obvious cause for what's going on, which I was never able to find in like the physical real world. Mm-hmm. So as I started to do some repair work there and learn how to not take on everybody's stuff and not do everyone's homework for them emotionally and not be the one trying to like heal everybody when I didn't know what I was doing or even wasn't even conscious of trying to heal people, slowly start to figure out how to stop all of that and redirect those gifts into something else, because it's a little bit like a fire hydrant, but that's open. So you've got to figure out how to like stop the fire hydrant because it's flooding the street with this gift that feels like a curse. And then later you can use it to like put out burning buildings and it's really handy. But when it's just broken open, like it's a natural disaster flooding the street, and it's a big deal. So that's what it was like in my life. I went through years and years of study and working and discovering all these things that I had. And one of the gifts that I learned that I had is this ability to communicate. And through all the work that I was doing on myself, I had never, ever had any desire to be a psychic or a medium or a reader, or not that those were weird things to me. I grew up with them being pretty normal. That was just never my goal. When you're drowning, you're not thinking about, oh, one day I'm going to write a book about this and it's going to help people. And you're just trying to survive. So I was just trying to survive. I wasn't thinking someday I want to teach. And no, none of that was real for me at all. So eventually I got to a place where I healed, and then people started asking me, can you show me what you did and what's happening there? And can you talk to my higher self? And can you do all these other things? And I was like, well, yeah, I spent all this time studying and I learned and I developed all these incredible gifts. I was just using them in my own life. Pretty soon I got called into doing this in a bigger way and showing it to other people. So to answer your question, intuitive channel is like the best quasi-mainstream description that I can come up with that isn't psychic, because that word is so loaded. Yeah. Basically everything has energy, and when you know how to interpret energy, you can communicate with anything. Mm-hmm. So if you have a dead grandma, she's still energy. There's a communication available. If you have a dog, if you have a tree in your yard, it's all energy, it's all life force, and it's all broadcasting and happy to communicate. The communication just comes in a different way than verbal. So I really think about myself as being a translator. I know how to plug in like the old school switchboards. Say like, can I talk to that tree? Can I talk to that dog? Can I talk to your dead grandma? What's your higher self doing? Which is like your spirit or your soul. And then get all this information, and it comes to me in lots of different ways simultaneously. And then the 22 years I've been practicing this, I know how to condense that down into English. So if that makes sense, that might have been more woo and less practical, but we'll see.
No, I think it's fantastic. And I think knowing that it's really about language and sometimes semantics and articulation, because obviously we all feel energy. We all know when we walk into a room and we have our gut instinct when someone's telling us something, but yet we're feeling a different vibe. So trusting our vibes Now, I know that you can do all these things with the switchboard and the thing and in the healing, and it's fantastic. And part of what you do is talk to people and teach them about abilities and gifts. And a lot of times that starts with people just in what they might say is their sensitivities. And a lot of times I think there's self-criticism around that. I'm too sensitive. Maybe they criticize themselves or they're told by parents, partners, or loved ones, oh, you're just being too sensitive. Or they're thinking, gosh, it was just a party. Why am I so exhausted? Why am I so, all of these things, sort of taking on other people's energies and emotions without realizing it. So how do you describe that as a gift? How do you describe what that means to be either empathic or just to have that sensitivity? What does that mean for someone?
Yeah, so it's complicated because none of those sound like positive things.
Right.
Right? And it's sort of like you have this natural ability that's coming out, it's kind of sideways. So if you imagine someone who was a really, really gifted musician and no one, just naturally born, and no one had ever given them an instrument,
Mm.
but they had music flowing through them all the time. Now try to put them in a school setting and expect them to sit still and pay attention and do like English assignments. No, they're going to be playing drums all the time. They're going to be dancing. The legs going to be going. They're going to be humming. They're going to be like, music will be pumping through them all the time. And it's coming out sideways. It's disruptive and doesn't seem like it. We understand enough about music that someone's like, get that kid a drum set, right? Like we see that as a gift. We see that as if you can funnel it into an area, it's going to be beautiful. We just don't see these kinds of sensitivities that way yet. I do see a day in the not very far future that that will be more normal. So far, not so much. So when you're really sensitive and it comes out in all these other ways, that's an ability to feel and connect with other humans in a deeper way than most people can. So you think about I'm a lot of people's super sensitive friend or too sensitive friend or whatever. But I'm also the person that so many people would come to when they want to be vulnerable because it was safe, or when they want to share, or when people would meet me and say like, I just feel so connected to you. I haven't shared this with anybody. They would just open up. So there's this level of like empathy and understanding that you can create. It made me a great manager in business for years and years and years because I could feel and understand what was going on with employees. I could diffuse conflicts. I could help people see someone else's point of view. I could get the best out of people in their work because I really understood how to feel and read people. And there's a beautiful benefit to it. And there's a drawback. I playfully call these superpowers because it puts it into like a lensing we can understand, because we've all watched a million superhero movies, and the like storyline is always the same. Superhero is either born with superpowers or gets them, i.e. radioactive spider, right? Superpowers are scary and confusing and wreak havoc on their lives and sometimes the whole neighborhood or world, until the point when they learn how to harness them, be able to turn them on and off at will, and then everybody wants to be their friend and they save the day. And it's exactly the same with this, except that most humans are hanging out in that like it's just wreaking havoc place. And so we just see it as being overly sensitive. And I was thinking the other day that one of the areas that we see this all the time with children, because we're all born pretty sensitive in different ways, but we're all way more sensitive as kids. A lot of people have had the experience of maybe you saw angels when you were little, or you talked to your great grandfather and then you mentioned him and everyone's like, nope, that's weird. He's been gone a long time. Or you had an imaginary friend that you knew was really real. Something like that, or you mention these kinds of little things and then society, maybe parents, but maybe just the collective society told you right away, no, weird, scary, woo-woo. And especially if you're energetically or emotionally sensitive at all, you picked up on that right away. You were like, zip, must fit in. So I know never to say that again. So we shut this stuff down really a lot when we're kids. Mm-hmm. But if you hang out with parents and children, on a day when a parent is having really a hard day, they're really stressed or they're really anxious or whatever's going on, and you look and you see that kid inevitably losing their mind, acting out, right? And of course the parent's like, why do you have to do this right when I'm, well, because they're just feeding off of you, right? They're little, wide open, sensitive beings, and you are filling this house with stress and anger, and they're being bombarded with it. And so it's coming out in whatever way. Some kids, they're acting up and misbehaving. Other ones are like hiding under the couch, like, whatever whatever they're doing to try to like figure out how to balance that. So all of us as adults are doing this. We're just a little more subtle about it because we've learned, a lot of us, to try to fit in more.
We temper it, right?
Yeah.
But one of the greatest skills that you teach, and I remember the first time I heard you say this, it was an incredible light bulb moment for me. And it relates to the metaphor of the fire hydrant. It's either just splashing out everywhere or you can control it. And I remember when we were having a conversation one time about sensitivity, and I think I'm feeling other people's things, and it's, creates codependency, like you say, wreaks all kinds of havoc in different ways. And I remember you saying, yeah, I get it. And when I learned to turn it off, and I just thought, oh, you can turn it off. And obviously we don't turn off who we are, but we start to learn boundaries. We start to get some space around, oh, this is what's happening. This is an appropriate sharing of energy, or here are some tools that I can use to protect myself. And there are practices that are part of what you teach. I know there's so many things that you teach and provide, but there are certain things like meditation and things like toolkit that you provide to people for learning to manage, navigate, turn off and on the incredible power and gift of the fire hose. So let's talk about a little bit of myth busting around those tools, maybe starting with meditation. The first thing I hear about meditation is I'm going to have to sit still. We have such a resistance to stopping and sitting still, especially like, do I have to close my eyes? Do I have to sit completely still? How long should I do it for? Should it be guided or should it be just my breath, right? It can get really confusing. So maybe you can hone some of that in for us and talk about your perspective on meditation, the way it's served you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like the minute you say the word meditation, the standard response is, oh, I can't meditate. I can't clear my mind. Or I tried that once, I couldn't do it. And oh, you can't clear your mind? You're not a monk sitting on a mountaintop who's been practicing for 45 years? Right. Most people, i.e. like, I don't know, 90% are not clearing their minds fully. Maybe for chunks of time, and maybe as you practice you get a little bit more of that, but the mind is made to spin and chatter, and it's like a dog with a bone. So when you want the mind distracted, like you got a dog and it's running all around, it's chewing on the furniture, you're like, here's a bone, and then the dog is pacified, right? And it's happy, it's doing something. So the easiest way, I think, to do that is to give the mind something to focus on. And then you can get into that place of some relaxation. So you give your mind something important to focus on, like you need to listen to the hum of the air conditioner, or you have to count breaths, or you have to listen to this audio recording we're going to listen to, or pay attention to this music, or watch what's happening in my body while I try to sit here. Or your job is to notice every time like thoughts come in, and then kick them back out again, over and over and over and over and over and over. That's your job. Mm-hmm. The mind's like got to have a job, especially at the beginning. And that's why I think it's so nice to do the energy work kind of meditation that we do in Master Your Magic, because there's clear things that the mind is doing. Visualize this, imagine this, picture this, and say this or affirm this. And as you're doing each of these things, and what's happening is you're really starting to shift and change and move energy around, and your mind has a job. So people will often say to me after they come and join in on a class or a workshop or something, wow, I never knew I could meditate. And they didn't just successfully meditate, which I think is a oxymoron itself, but in their minds, they successfully meditated, but they had this amazing experience in their first ever attempt. Wow, that was incredible. I felt all these things in my body. I saw all these things. I had this epiphany. I feel calm and centered. The pain in my back is gone. That was incredible. And that's available for everybody. I've been teaching this for 14 years, and I've never met a single person that can't do this. I've never met a single person who isn't gifted. I have met a whole bunch of people, maybe more than half, definitely more than half, probably the vast majority actually, who say they think they can't, or say, I don't think I'm gifted, or I don't think I'm sensitive, or I don't think I can meditate. Most people come in saying something like that, and then are blown away by how good they wind up being at it.
Incredible. And when the mind has a job, all these other sensory experiences can be going on. Maybe it's a visual thing. Maybe it's an answer to something. I know a lot of the meditations that you lead have asked this question, this sense of self-inquiry. And those might come in, the answers or whatever it may be, might come in different ways, whether it's imagery, a sensory, a message, a feeling somewhere in your body. So will you talk a little bit about what that means? Is that, oh, I'm psychic, or I'm communicating? What can you break down the myth around maybe being psychic and talk about the different ways that we receive messages and work with energy?
Yeah, oh, that's such a good question. So first off, we just have to get out of the way that everybody is psychic. It's a stupid word, or I should say the way that we think about it is stupid. It's a sixth sense that we all have. There's a whole bunch of them actually, but it would be like saying only really strange, weird people, and we think they're making it up, like have a sense of smell or hearing. No, you all have that, unless there's something really strange in your body that, you don't have, but pretty much everybody's got this. And energetically, for sure, everybody has these. They just do. Whether or not yours is really developed, whether or not you've practiced it, it's a little bit like learning, like we were saying with music. If you want to learn to play music, everybody can learn to play music. Some of us are like tone deaf and don't have rhythm and 2 left feet, and it might take us a little longer, but we're going to get something, right? We could like strum a banjo, we could play a triangle, might have to practice for a really long time to get there, but like we could get there. And then there's the people who are born, just doesn't matter what the instrument is, they can pick it up and create something that will make you cry tears of beauty. So big spectrum. And it's like that with everybody with our intuitive gifts as well. And there are different avenues that we all lean towards. So there's ways that information comes through to us most easily. And then you can develop them all really. So the basic ones that we talk about, there's 3, arguably 4, depending on who you ask. There's a whole bunch, and really they're all kind of overlap. But the basic ones are clear seeing, when you see images, either with your eyes open or closed in meditation. Clear hearing, which is when you hear voices. And sometimes it sounds like your own voice talking, and sometimes it sounds like another voice, and sometimes you hear it just when you're in meditation. Some people hear it like there's someone in the room. There's clear feeling, which is what we were talking about with the sensitivity, where you can feel other people. If you've ever talked to someone who's like a body worker, they've gone into, a lot of these people become healers. So maybe they've gone into massage or something, and they can sense in their own body where your pain is, or they just know naturally, and they go straight for that one trigger point. You're like, wow, I didn't even know that was there. And they immediately went to it. So they're feeling what's happening with you physically, emotionally, whatever. And then there's clear knowing, which is what we often call an epiphany. If you were going from not thinking about a thought, like I wasn't thinking about, I don't know how to solve global warming, and then all of a sudden I just knew the answer, that's clear knowing. It says download of information all of a sudden. I just had an epiphany. Just received information. So we call those, and they're the clairs, which means clear, clairvoyance, seeing, clairaudience, clear sentience to feel, and clear cognizance to know. So then there's a whole bunch of other ones. And I think it's so much fun when I get to meet somebody and we get to start to dissect, like, how do you work? How do you see, receive, feel information? And everybody's got this beautiful blending that's unique to them. It's really gorgeous and super fun. And everybody has something that you're more naturally disposed to than the other, even if you think you don't.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I know I've always said I'm very visual, and knowing that though lets me focus on, or just listen to, I say listen to the seeing, listen to the visuals, but I should say receive that way. And I don't need to worry so much about the other ones. We all have our unique style. Of course, it's a symphony, right? It's such a beautiful thing about humanity and all of our own authenticity and all of our gifts. Yes. Now, there's something else that you mentioned it earlier, and it's the higher self. I think that has a potential to really get people into the, okay, now I'm tapping out. Higher self, what are you talking about with higher self? And I also love the way that you describe and break that down, because in receiving these messages, who are we talking to? Who's talking to us? And what is this that's looking after us, that has our back? Can you describe the higher self, and maybe also a little pin in that, also the work that you do in talking to other people's higher selves?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, again, it's semantics. You can pick whatever word you like. Pick the one that feels best to you. So you're probably pretty aware that you have a soul, that something in you is more than this body. Science can pretty much prove that at this point. So it's like pretty well agreed upon. Michael Singer wrote an amazing book called The Untethered Soul. And he spends chapters and chapters and chapters of this book explaining sort of like the logical reasoning behind you have a soul, where he says, okay, what are you? Well, are you this body? Because you're aware of the moving of the body. Well, are you the emotions? You're aware of the emotions. Okay, you're the thoughts, you're the mind, but you're aware of the mind. There is a part in here that's the observer that is monitoring or observing or controlling or dictating to all these other parts that don't seem to be exactly who you are. Of course, his multi-chapter description is much more beautiful and really comical. It's a great book. So what is that? And that is what is commonly referred to as the soul. So when we say higher self, or people say inner being, inner ding was Louise Hay's term, like ding, 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 which I love, because that's what it feels like a lot of times, that like, oh, I just had an idea. Oh, my gut says to do this, right? We have that gut instinct. So it's your gut, it's your intuition, it's the part of you that's aware. If we think about being this big soul, part of that soul gets projected here when we decide, I'm gonna go do the human thing. So there's a piece of that that's here, but there's still a whole bunch of it. And that whole bunch of it didn't do what we in the physical form did and forget everything, because you got to forget everything to come here. Or, you don't come out of nothingness. I mean, you can believe that if you want to. I don't like to, because it doesn't ring true to me in my intuitive gut. So if it came from the all-knowingness, from the non-physical place, and then we came here, we had to forget all that at least a little bit in order to even buy into this reality that we're playing in and have it feel like the stakes are real and big. So the rest of you is still hanging out as energy connected to you, but bigger. And that part of you knows everything, is aware of everything, is pulling strings for you, is working on your behalf, is celebrating you all the time, is loving you, is so intimately in your face aware of everything you're doing all the time. So when we really start to get, like in our bones, get the truth of that, things like, I'm so alone. Those moments that we've all had, right? Like, no one is there for me. Those moments become rather comical when you realize how not alone we ever, ever, ever are, and how much help and support there really, really is for us. So your higher self is this energy entity being that is you, and so much more, that is sort of helping all the time. My favorite analogy that I've been shown in readings is when a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old says like, I baked cookies today. And you're like, really? No, you didn't. You can't reach the counter. You don't know how to read a bag, like at the recipe, and you open the thing. And no, your mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or caregiver baked cookies, and you probably thought you were helping and really just made a bigger mess. That's really what happened. But we say, good job. We're so proud of you. That's awesome. That's your higher self. Your higher self is the one baking the cookies and doing all the things and being like, you're so good. And we're the ones grabbing the bowl of flour and stirring and getting shit everywhere in our own lives. Truly. Yeah. We're just causing a shitstorm constantly and then being like, I did it. Okay. And your higher self is the one like, yeah, you did. You're awesome. Go you. You're so good. Minus the condescension, of course, like they really mean it.
Yeah. It rings so true because there's two, well, when I was going through my simultaneous divorce and cancer, and there was so much the, oh my God, I'm so alone. Or maybe more so the, who is ever going to love me again? There was always this little voice when I was absolutely brought to my knees that would say, I am. I'll love you. What are you talking about? I'm right here. I choose to love you. I'll do it. And the voice, I always knew if it was sort of the voice of love or the voice of fear, because the voice of love, which maybe I would say my higher self, would primarily say two things. The first was, I love you. And the second was, you're doing such a good job, no matter what mess we're making or what story we're buying into. In our human dramas, and even the breast cancer very much felt like acting out a human drama in a lot of ways. So that was about the time that I signed up with you to take Master Your Magic. It was years ago, and learning those gifts, in fact, I was in Master Your Magic when I got the breast cancer diagnosis. And it was like this little secret between our group that was, this is actually a blessing, right? This is this magnificent thing that's going to grow and evolve and show you how to show up for yourself and love yourself deeper, maybe even be a support system for other people down the road, who knows? It was kind of the birthplace of what I call the blessing diagnosis, right? So such a fantastic support system. Do you want to talk a little bit about Master Your Magic and who it's for? Does it have to be for sensitive people? Does it have to be for someone going through something, or just someone who wants to do the deep inner work? I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you teach people specifically through this program.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about that experience of yours, because it was so incredible to have a front row seat to that. I just truly, I don't have words. So in Master Your Magic, we learn how to communicate with our higher selves. We learn how to, that's one of like 57 tools or something. It's some huge toolbox that you build. But you're learning how to have this communication and how to have these, how to hone and uncover and then really amplify your own gifts, how to do healing work with yourself, how to shift energy, how to not take on the world around you, how to protect yourself in a healthy way, how to not put up all the unhealthy walls that you may have had when you didn't have a better option. It goes on and on and on. You're healing your own inner child. You're exploring, the energies that are the masculine and feminine within you. It's so much fun. And partway through this, and I remember you saying, like, really early on, way more so than I ever would have expected from anybody, honestly, this is the blessing diagnosis. I remember you calling it that, like, right off the bat. I remember you, because what a beautiful timing for your higher self to have orchestrated, truly, that you were already in this program, in the thick of like the study and conversations, so that you could get this diagnosis and immediately be able to ask your higher self, what's up with this?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
and be told right away, oh yeah, you got the blessing diagnosis, this is going to be amazing. And it was, and it continues to be, and you have evolved this into, I mean, it's only going to grow, the benefit that you get from this thing. So when I say our higher selves are always cheering us on and always proud of us, it's because they can see the long game. They're aware, your higher self, of course, is in the place of being like, ah, because they're looking all the way forward at what's going to come out of this diagnosis for you. Who wouldn't be excited about that if they've got that much understanding and awareness of what's really coming? It's a big, exciting thing. It's like foreshadowing in a movie when you see something happen, but you know something like really amazing is coming for the character. Mm-hmm. Only they're way further ahead than that even. So who is it for? The program is for everybody. It's designed to meet you exactly where you're at. So I have total beginner students come in who are saying things like, I don't think I'm sensitive. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Let me tell you the ways. I can see it. I've been watching. And then, or who are like, Cara, I've never meditated. This is all weird, new to me. I don't know what we're doing, but I just feel called to it. All the way to people who have been seeing and talking to spirits their whole lives. This is part of who they are, who they've always been. Like, they can talk to you as easily as they can talk to your dead Aunt Mildred who's following you around. Mm-hmm. So everybody coming to this builds this really safe, solid, healthy foundation to then put this structure on top of that is like your gifts and abilities. And wherever you are in your journey with it, it just takes you further. It's sort of like if, again, you're that, let's say, guitar player, and you could be a brand new guitar player, or you could have been playing guitar with, I don't know, Led Zeppelin. And regardless, a really good teacher is going to help you take it further. Mm-hmm. There's always more to go. And when you find a really good teacher, they can help you take it further. Whether you are never picked up a guitar before and don't even know how to hold it in, or you've been playing since you were 3, there's always more to bring out of that. And that's what this program does. And that's why it's designed so that people can enroll in it once and take it again year after year after year after year. And so many people come back to take it over and over and over again because they want to keep uncovering and peeling back and honing in on all of those different tools.
And the container that you create, the safe and sacred container that you create is really, if we're using the analogy of the guitar, you're just making this space where everybody just gets to jam out, right? So I really want to emphasize the piece of the program that is pure fun and joy and connection and camaraderie amongst people that are maybe intimidated or nervous or not sure if they've gotten themselves in over their heads, or people that have absolutely, as you say, been practicing forever. Everyone is there for the purpose of let's jam out, let's continue to grow, let's play. There's always another level to take this, and it's a beautiful, beautiful practice. I also want to take a quick note to say, if anyone were thinking like, oh, this is something that's going to make me into a woo-woo, this is something that's going to, change me so that I'm going to become one of those people. I'm going to become even more sensitive, or then I'm going to be attached to these types of practices, or there's stigma or dogma around that. It really is something that you get to take on for yourself and use in your own way. I continually come back to my own level of woo, which is different, maybe a little bit more mainstream. But we get that ability to celebrate the range and explore the range as much as possible, which is so, so fun. So I would love if you would let us know where anybody watching can find out more about you, working with you, whether it's workshops or retreats, or potentially master your magic. Where's a great place for people to connect with you, Cara?
Thank you. And thank you for saying that about bringing it into wherever you bring it into. That's really important to me, that this comes into and integrates into just our lives and helps make our lives more fun and happier and all the things. So whatever your field is. We've had full-time parents, we've had pilots, we've had lawyers, we've had just really the full spectrum of careers of people and types of people. I've got the really sciencey people that are like, I need to know all the reasons, all the way to the people that are like, yeah, okay, sure, just explain it. We're doing it. We're already off in our heads going there. Yeah. So it really is, it's something that I want incorporated, you to have the capacity to use however you want to use it.
Exactly.
So yeah, it becomes, instead of making you more woo, you're bringing this more mainstream, really. You're bringing this into your life, into who you are. It's just, now it's not scary anymore because it's not weird and out there.
Yeah.
So I thank you. I love that you said that, and that you brought in the playfulness. That's one of the big things that I see as a strange thing when I look out at so many different aspects of like spirituality, is this like serious, staunch, painful sort of version of spirituality. And I'm just so confused by that, because I'm like, who are you guys talking to on the other side? It's truly, it's only in the human lens that we put that on it, because there isn't a being in non-physical, and I have had thousands of conversations that's not playful and full of love and silly. And I mean, the humor is amazing. Truly, you look around this world, you're like, there's got to be humor, right? God or the universe or goddess has got to have a sense of humor. I'm looking around like, it does. Yes. 100% it does. Yeah. And your higher self has an amazing sense of humor. So there's this lighthearted playfulness. And the more you do this work, the more you get to that place of like joyful playfulness. So if people want to learn about Master Your Magic, it's on my website, which is caraviana.com. There's a page for it that explains all the things. Let's see here. The next upcoming retreat I have is in June, but that one's sold out. So there will be another retreat coming up the following year, so people can keep an eye out for that one. Maybe one in the fall, we'll see, depending. I'm in the trying to get pregnant stage, so that might change how we book things. And then I run a course called Relationship Alchemy in the fall that's all about transmuting relationship into everything you ever dreamed of. Yeah, and there's always new programs and subscriptions happening and ways that we can play together. And I do tons of free stuff and workshops, and I love to just put positive energy out into the world.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel mostly, again, my higher self just wants to repeat. I love you. You're doing a great job. I love you. You're doing a great job. It's for me. It's for you. It's for anyone listening. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Cara. And until next time, everybody, get your woo on. Master your magic. You're magical. You are loved. We'll see you next time. Thank you.